my friends. This is Pastor Lorraine from the Book of Acts Church. I wanted to give you a message today about different characters because I find some of them are very interesting, and a lot of times we might read in the Bible, but we don't really know a lot about these people personally, what the details of their lives were like. So today what I'd like to do is I just call it kind of like fascinating facts. So we're going to look at the man Solomon in the Bible. Just so that you know, Solomon was king over Israel at one point, but his father was, he was the son of David and Bathsheba. If you want to read more about Solomon, that would be in the first 11 chapters of First Kings and then the first 9 chapters of Second Chronicles. So Solomon, like I said, he was the son of King David and of Bathsheba. He's the one that built the first temple. It was said that David, his father, had too many sins, so he wasn't allowed to build the temple. There was too much blood in his hands, so Solomon was given that task. Actually, Solomon was the last unified king of Israel. Remember, there was the 12 tribes, but after Solomon, because basically of his own downfall and sins, that got split up between 10 tribes to the north and the 2 tribes in the south. Solomon had unbelievable wealth. You know, he surpassed all the kings of the earth's riches. 1 Kings 10:14 tell that he got yearly 666 talents of gold yearly, which is well over $1 billion. If you want to read more about his wealth, you could read 1 Kings 10:14 through 29, and then 14 through 21, and 22 through 29, and it lists all of his great wealth. You wouldn't believe the amount of wealth this man had. He was well known. Solomon was well known for his wisdom, but his wisdom came from God. And it's interesting because God had said to him, basically, I'm just paraphrasing, but what do you want? You could have riches or wisdom. And Solomon picked wisdom, and God was very pleased with that more than he would pick the wealth. And in the meantime, while he got the wisdom, God also gave him great wealth. So Solomon was anointed king while King David was still alive, and he was the younger of all of his brothers. His older brother Adonijah thought that before King David passed away, he just assumed that he was going to be the heir to the throne. But King David, because of Bathsheba, her input made Solomon the king, and basically King Solomon, once he became king, had his brother killed. Solomon was notorious to get rid of right away. When he became king, he got rid of all of his opponents quickly, even some of his family, as we find out with his brother. Once he got rid of his foes, he established friends in key areas of military and government and religion. The 8th chapter of 2 Chronicles shows his successful military operations in Syria. What Solomon was very popular in is he wanted control over the trading routes. He was very intelligent, wise to do this. So what it did is he solidified control of these trading routes by planting Israelite colonies to look after all the military, administrative, and commercial matters. Palestine was one of those important centers because of the strategic location for the trade by land and sea, because it was a connection to many lands. So the nature of Solomon's empire was predominantly commercial, but he was well known all over the world. His wisdom preceded him everywhere, about the wisdom of Solomon, so much so that even the Queen of Sheba came to visit because she had heard of his great wisdom. And she herself, the Queen of Sheba, was also very wealthy. She was part of the southern Arabian kingdom that lay along the Red Sea route in the Indian Ocean. So Solomon needed her products and trades, and she needed his cooperation for marketing her goods in the Mediterranean via, the Palestinian ports. So the Queen of Sheba is mentioned in 1 Kings 10, 1 through 13. You can read more about her, and in 2 Chronicles, 9, 1 through 13. Like I said, she was known for her great wealth and wisdom, and she was seeking after the wisdom of Solomon because she really basically wanted to test to see if he really was wise, because she was very wise herself. She confirmed that what she had heard about King Solomon was true, and it's interesting that we see the Queen of Sheba mentioned again in Matthew 12:42 and Luke 11:31, and it says, and that's the same someone greater than Solomon has come, referring to Jesus. Solomon was also an ambitious builder, and he especially lavished onto Jerusalem and built it to be quite extravagant. His wisdom was extraordinary. There is one example that everyone probably knows about, but there was two women. They both had babies. In the middle of the night, one woman rolled over and must have suffocated her baby, and that baby died. So what she did is she went to the other woman in the middle of the night and took her baby and brought it to her side. In the morning, the one woman woke up wondering where her baby was, seeing her baby was with this other woman who the baby had died. She said, that's not your baby, that's my baby. So they had an argument. So Solomon, in his great wisdom, people were just amazed, but he watched the reaction of the women, because what he said to them, okay, let them both have a piece of the child. Let's, divide the child in half. So everybody was shocked. The mothers were shocked. And to watch the reaction of each one of the women at the prospects of dividing the child in half. Of course, the one woman said that it wasn't her child, said, yeah, let's go ahead. Let's split the baby in half, And then the other woman was so distraught by it, the thought of her own child being cut in half. She said, go ahead, give the other woman, the baby, because she didn't want the baby to be killed. So right away, Solomon knew that the one woman that said, give, the baby away because she didn't want it to be killed, that was the real mother. So he was just well known for all kinds of wisdom like that. Solomon was also very poetic. He wrote the book of Proverbs, which much of his wisdom that he obtained is written there. He also wrote the Song of Solomon, and which is quite understandable. He had quite a large harem and wives. That was important to him. And he wrote a good portion of Ecclesiastes in his older age. We call Ecclesiastes more of the critic age, after all the disappointments and sins in his life, and many things that he speaks about are negative, we live and then we die, and, all sorts of things. But interesting, after all of his great wisdom, he had everything. Everything. He had God, he had wisdom, he had wealth, he had all these things. Anything that he could ever want, he had. But yet we see a decline in his life because of sin. So history suspects that the increase of wealth was matched because of his extravagance, and it wasn't diffused to the people. Solomon had shown great favoritism to his own tribe, which was Judah, and also his son had a harsh policy towards the northern tribes. So the northern tribes had had enough of Solomon's wisdom and the harshness of Rehoboam, Solomon's son, that basically they picked Solomon's servant and said, we want you to be king. So Jeroboam, who was the servant of Solomon, formed his own kingdom with the 10 tribes of the north, which left Solomon with the 2 southern tribes of Judah and Benjamin. So if we wrap this up, in the beginning, in the book of Proverbs, it was clear that that Solomon was following God and that God was blessing him. We see then Solomon starting to sin. He had great extravagances. He had too many wives. I think it was like 700 or something, and 300 concubines. And the other thing is a lot of these women were from other cultures. So with that, they brought with them their belief systems, and many of them deceived probably Solomon to following after their gods. The Bible does say that Solomon's wives turned him away from God. He also had built altars to the pagan gods of his wives on the hills surrounding Jerusalem. I'm sure God wasn't pleased with that. So God, of course, wasn't pleased. Now we see the downfall of Solomon and the division of the 12 tribes. Like I said, instead of being now one kingdom, this is where the division happens. Now it's the 10 tribes, the northern tribes, being run by Jeroboam, and the other 2 tribes given to Solomon, which would have gone to Rehoboam. We also see that Solomon becomes cynical and critical in his writings of Solomon in Ecclesiastes. The one thing that we don't really see and we don't really know about is we don't see whether or not that Solomon ever repented of all the things that he had done wrong. So we don't know even if Solomon's going to be in heaven. That's all up to God, but we don't see it at all in the Bible. So what kind of wisdom, to wrap this up, can we find out from Solomon's life? So no matter what, number one is follow after God in all things, every single area of your life. If you don't, then there's little places where the enemy can get at you and cause you to sin. Starts out small, gets bigger, then it's a problem. If the Lord does bless you spiritually with wisdom or great wealth or something, keep your eyes on the Lord and not on the wealth. Keep your eyes on him to be your director. Keep your eyes on him to show you what to do, not just taking your wealth and determining that you don't really need to hear from God because you have so much. They talk about in the New Testament, Jesus says, it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. So also, don't forget who blessed you. It was God that gave you the blessing. Make sure that you give all the glory to him in every area. Stay humble and stay close to the Lord. It's important to stay humble. If you do sin, this is the big one, repent. Turn from your sinful ways and again follow the Lord. We don't see that really happening in with the life of Solomon, which is sad. Because here's a man that had so much, and even to this day, most people still know about the name of Solomon and his great wisdom and his wealth. But look what happened to him in the end. His wives turned him away, too much extravagance, not treating the people right, sacrificing to his wives and concubines, gods, and all that stuff. He just turned, and it wasn't good for him. So that's my wisdom for you today. I hope you enjoyed listening more about Solomon's life and you learned a little bit too. I don't know as we'll ever have as much wisdom as Solomon does, but actually we might be wiser than in the end than Solomon was if we do follow the Lord and we stay close to him and we stay humble and all that good stuff that I told you. So we might end up being wiser than Solomon did in the end. So that's all I got for you today. I hope you have a great week, and we'll talk to you real soon. And exciting times that we live in and hard times we live in. But just keep the faith. If you don't know Jesus Christ, he's there for you. Just reach out to him and ask him to show himself, and he will. So we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.